Everybody just take a deep breath. All right. If you have already been on a plane today, raise your hand. Can we give it up for our team from Texas that's here? You have no excuse to be late to church because they came on a plane from Texas and still got to church. That's pretty amazing. Thank you, guys. We're so excited that you're here. We're going to have fun this week. We've been talking the last month about how to have an unhurried life. And man, these last 3 messages, they've been really helpful. So I encourage you to go check out our YouTube channel. Week 1, Mike Eulich did an awesome job talking about how Jesus offers us the rest that our souls need. And he taught out of this beautiful passage in Hebrews chapter 4. Week 2, we looked at the invitation from Jesus himself in Matthew chapter 11, where he says, "Come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest." And we talked about what are rhythms that you can have for rest, not just for your body, but also for your soul. And then last time, Mike talked again about maybe one of the most famous passages in history, Psalm 23. You've heard it before. The Lord is my shepherd. And man, there's so much peace and rest that you find when you see that he is your protector, he is your provider, and he is present. So go back and watch those messages. They've been awesome. Today, we are going to talk about how, yes, an unhurried life sounds nice, but is it really attainable? Especially when you feel like you are in an unsafe situation, when you feel like you are in danger. Have you ever had a point where you felt restful, you felt unhurried, and then all of a sudden something happened and you were very much in a hurry, right? And like you felt like you had no choice. You had to hurry. You had to get out of danger. You had to escape. And so I think back to a beautiful morning where I took my kids to the pond to feed the ducks. And so I went and we had like a loaf of bread, and we get up to this pond, and we're just tossing little pieces of bread to the ducks. And it was really peaceful. It was really unhurried. Just imagine like the little plop sound of the bread hitting the pond. It's so still. And as long as it was just ducks, it was fine. But does anybody else know about the swans? When the swans come around, the direction takes a turn. Because swans not only are territorial, but in breeding season, they become aggressive. And so I'm not proud of how many times I ran away from the swans and left my kids to fend for themselves. But this is like a moment, right? This is a moment where you thought you were unhurried. You thought you were safe. You thought it was restful. And then all of a sudden, it just wasn't. And this is what we're talking about today. Like, the unhurried life is difficult sometimes. We have to acknowledge that sometimes it is impossible to live an unhurried life when you are in danger. And I don't know what your life is like right now. There's people in our community who don't feel safe in their own homes because of abuse. And if that's you, please come find me because we want to help you. There's lots of resources to help you get out of the abusive situation. So the safety of your own home could cause you to not be able to live an unhurried life. Maybe for you, you feel a danger in your neighborhood. You feel like you need to hurry in and out of the house because it's not safe there. Maybe you feel like you can't be unhurried because you've got some anxiety, right? And anxiety, that's why it exists, is to get you out of a dangerous situation and to get you to safety. It's your body's way of helping lead you away from danger, leading you towards safety. And for many of us, the threat that we feel isn't external. It is internal. So we feel maybe it's the weight of some trauma that you have experienced or some anxiety that you can't control that's on the inside. And it leads you away from an unhurried life. It leaves you trying to get away from what feels dangerous. And so here's what we're talking about today. How do I live an unhurried life when the journey becomes dangerous? Feeding the ducks was nice, but when the swans showed up, it is impossible to live an unhurried life. You know, throughout history, humanity has grown and changed, and so many amazing things have happened as, you look back on the history of humanity. But one thing has remained the same. There have always been threats, and there will always be threats to humanity. And those have changed, and they've been different. But I want you to kind of journey back with me to this ancient tribal people called Israel. And they lived an agrarian lifestyle, which means everything that they did was based on farming and animals. They were very focused on trying to survive. They were constantly being attacked by their neighboring nations. They were living with multiple generations in the house, so they were very close with their family. And so imagine you were in this environment, and then 3 times a year, you had to leave your house with all your extended family, and you had to go on this really long and difficult hike uphill, miles and miles, to Mount Zion in Jerusalem to sacrifice to the Lord. 3 times a year, you left the security of home. You had to leave your crops unattended. Who knows what's going to happen while you're gone? And then because you are out exposed on the road, there's just a higher level of danger. So you're open to robbery. You're open to, all kinds of terrible things, being attacked. And so just imagine that you're in this environment and you're being commanded by God to go up to Mount Zion 3 times a year. And you're on this journey, and you're tired. You got all your extended family and all your stuff. You're getting tired. And then you hear a song. It's one of those songs that you've known ever since you were a little kid. And your parents taught it to you, and their parents taught it to them. And it's been carried through generation and through generation throughout ancient Israel. And I'm not going to sing it, but it's Psalm 121. It's actually why we named our church The Hills. And it was used in these environments where they were going up the hill. It's called a Psalm of Ascent. And here's how it starts. It says, I lift my eyes up to the hills. A song of ascent means you're going from a lower elevation to a higher elevation. And if you've ever done this before, if you've ever gone on a hike from a lower elevation to an upper elevation, something is required. You have to do what the psalmist did. You have to lift your eyes up. This is difficult for us in life because you have a choice, right? Where are you going to put your focus in life? You can put your focus down on your current life, on your circumstances, maybe on some bad good stuff. You can put your focus on the sides, right? So if you're looking to the side, you're probably comparing yourself. So if you look one way, you might see someone that you feel much more fortunate than, and you start to feel a sense of pride. Or maybe if you go to the other side, you look to someone that's way more fortunate than you, and you start to feel jealous or you feel shame. And so this is saying you have to lift your eyes up to the hills. And here's what we know. This is such a simple but true statement. Looking up is required to move forward in life. When you're going on a hike, and it's an uphill hike, life is an uphill hike, right? We have to look up to go forward in life. I have to look up to go forward in life. I'm a terrible mountain biker. I would like to just admit that to all of you. A year ago, my wife, Amy, she's so amazing. She always gives me amazing gifts. She got her brother to help pick out this awesome mountain bike for me. Never had a mountain bike before. And when I got this bike, I realized wow, this is a really cool mountain bike. And so I got really excited and really nervous. And I still remember the first time that I tried to go mountain biking with my friend Andrew Martin. And he took me to this easy trail that was supposed to, be for beginners. And it was embarrassing, man. I probably fell 20 plus times. Because what would happen is you'd be fine for a while, and then I'd get shaky because I'm tired because I don't have any endurance. And then there would be this back and forth through the rocks over some dirt, and it was rough. And I kept looking down and just crashing. And about 3/4 of the way through the bike ride, he gave me this advice that was so simple but so necessary to me. He said, when you're going through something difficult, don't look down, because then you're going to crash. I was like, okay, that's why I'm crashing. He said, look 20 feet ahead of you, because if you look 20 feet ahead of you, you'll see the difficult thing coming, and then the bike will just go over it, and you won't have to worry about it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly how I taught my kids to ride a bike, right? Like they're learning how to ride a bike. They're looking down, and they're not going to be able to ride a bike if they're looking down. I had to teach them to look ahead. And I was doing the same thing that my kids do with that mountain biking trail. Looking up is required to move forward in life. And when you look up, something cool happens. You have options, right? Like, so whenever I was biking, I had options when I looked up on how I would approach the trail that was coming. And when you look up in your life, you have options about where you're going to put your focus. And so the psalmist starts it, right? He says, I lift my eyes up to the hills. And then he says, where does my help come from? I think that's a legitimate question. And within that question is a really true, profound statement. You can't do it alone. You and I need help in life. Help can look like a lot of things. It can look like family. It can look like friends. It can look like neighbors. It can look like strangers sometimes. Isn't it true that we don't like needing help, but then we really appreciate help when people help us? I relate to this. I mean, I'll never forget one time in 2021, our church had just launched, and the church completely ran out of money. And so I had to tell the 20-something people who were left, we're not going to be getting a paycheck this month. And that month, people, our friends, some of you guys here, helped us pay our bills. And I did not like needing help, but I really appreciated being helped. And I hope that never happens again. But this is how our relationship with help is, right? Like we don't want to need help, but we really appreciate help. And so I want to just ask you, where does your help come from? Where does your help come from? You can't go on the journey alone, especially when it becomes dangerous. And if you're someone who says, I don't need any help, you can take a nap. I don't care what Mike said. Like, you can check yourself out the rest of this talk, because this talk is for people who know we need help. You'll come to your senses eventually, and you'll realize you are someone just like the rest of us who needs help. And I also want to warn you, because if you think that your help can come from another human, you need to prepare to be disappointed. Every single one of us. I mean, people can be a great help, but if you think that you're going to find your help, the source of your help, in a human, prepare to be disappointed. I will tell you, I will disappoint you. There are many people in this room who are already disappointed multiple times. And for that, I'm sorry. I hope to become a better husband, a better dad, a better pastor, and a better friend. But I know that I will let you down. And I know that your spouse will let you down. Your kids will let you down. Your siblings will let you down. Your friends will let you down. Even that person in your life who you feel like they are eternally for you, they will let you down. Because that is the nature of humanity. We fail. And it hurts. Because we were never meant to be the source of your help. And so when you realize this, that people can't be the source of my help, you start looking up and you have options, right? Because you're looking up. And you might see maybe another religion or a philosophy as a potential place to put your hope in and to put your help. And that's exactly what happened to this ancient Israeli people. When they would look up, they would see the high places. And on every high place, all the hills around Israel, they would look up and they would see these shrines and these idols and these altars built to other gods. And they would say, okay, maybe my help can come from there. For us, maybe here's what it looks like. Maybe it looks like trusting in karma. Maybe for you, it's trusting in the universe. Or maybe it's like some kind of superstition that you live in. These things are really common. And I know we like to live in a world where we respect each other's opinions. And I'm going to say something that is very politically incorrect. There is no other God besides the Lord. And the psalmist who wrote this, he knows that. He says, I lift my eyes up to the hills. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord. My help comes from the Lord. You notice it's a first-person statement. He doesn't say us. He says me. My help comes from the Lord. In other words, I can't decide where your help's going to come from. It would be so much easier if I could decide for my kids, or if I could decide for you that your help is going to come from God. It's going to make your life so much better. But I can only be in charge of me. and you can only be in charge of you. And I choose to find my help in the Lord. And I hope that you will consider doing the same. And it's made all the difference in my life. When you choose to say this, what the psalmist said, my help comes from the Lord, it's a statement about your priorities in life. And it's a statement of faith. And when you make that faith statement, not just with your mouth, but with your life, and say, this is what I'm all in on, is the Lord, following Jesus. Something happens. You experience something that is life-altering. And it alters your past, present, and your future. The word is salvation. And salvation is such a powerful thing because it's not just here and now. It's all-encompassing of your life. In fact, if you've never heard this, there's actually 3 tenses to salvation. So we say, I have been saved, I am being saved, and I will be saved. So I'm going to just give you the 3 words that go along with each tense of salvation. Past tense of salvation is called justification. A good way to think about justification is you think it's just as if I never sinned. So when you are justified, it means Jesus has paid for every sin you've ever committed. Everything you've done to rebel against God is paid for. Justification says you don't have to make any more payment for the mistakes that you've made in your life. You see, when the early Israelites made this journey, they had to carry something with them. The poorest of the poor, they would just carry a little bit of grain, and they would sacrifice the grain to God. But those who were more well off, the bigger families, they would carry their best lamb or their best bull, and they would bring it to the altar, and they would kill it, and they would burn it, and they would sacrifice it to God. And what would happen is, it wasn't a once and for all sacrifice. It was every time they went, every time they came, they had to do another sacrifice. Because when they made a sacrifice, it would only delay the wrath of God. But the thing that we believe about Jesus, the reason we love the death and resurrection of Jesus so much is Jesus' death was all-encompassing. It paid for the sins of the world. It brings salvation, trusting in Jesus' death and resurrection. That's what justification says. It says, I have been saved. You can know for sure. And if you're here today and you're like, man, I'm not sure, then today's your day. Today's the day that I challenge you to say, not just with your words, but with your life, my help comes from the Lord. I choose Jesus. And it's going to make a huge difference. And it doesn't just say I have been saved. The present reality is I am being saved. The present tense of salvation is called sanctification. It literally means to be made holy. And when you are sanctified, when you start to walk in sanctification every day, trusting in Jesus, following Jesus, what happens is you become more like Jesus every day. This is why you've seen those Christians in your life who live it out, and you're like, man, there's something different about them. They are being sanctified. They are walking with Jesus. You are seeing their salvation being worked out every single day. And it's not easy, it's tough, but God does the changing. And so I have been saved, justification. I am being saved, sanctification, and I will be saved. This is the most beautiful one. It's called glorification. Glorification says, in eternity, I will be saved. Not just from the consequences of sin or the power of sin, but from the presence of sin. God will save us for eternity and make us just like him. And glorification says there will be a day when he will make all things new. This is what happens when you choose to say, my help comes from the Lord. He'll make all things new. Just like he did back at the beginning. And that's actually where the psalmist goes next. He says, I lift my eyes up to the hills. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord. And then listen to what he says next. The maker of heaven and earth. This is who our God is. Right in the middle of this psalm, you see one of the most amazing feats in history. The creation of the universe. God made everything. Is anything too hard for him? Man, can you trust him with your journey? I would say yes. And I'll say just like he created heaven and earth, he has a creation story for you. He is writing your creation story right now. When I look back at what my life was like before Jesus, and then I see the way that he has changed me, the way he's making me a new creation, it's undeniable. we have this verse that we hold on to that talks about what it means to be a new creation. It's 2 Corinthians 5:17. It says, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old is gone, the new has come. So when you keep looking up, you see what he's done. You see what he's done in creation. You see what he's done in your life. And then you can look with confidence at the future and say, I trust not just in what he's done, in what he's going to do. And the next part of this passage is just beautifully poetic. And I want to say it over you. I say it over myself multiple times a week. I would even challenge you, maybe you need to memorize this week and let it do something in your soul. So remember, he starts it off. I lift my eyes up to the hills. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. And then it switches to a future view. It says, he will not let your foot slip. He who watches over you will not slumber. Indeed, he who watches over Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. You don't have to worry about it. God's got you even when you're sleeping. He doesn't sleep. The Lord watches over you. The Lord will be your shade at your right hand. The sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you safe from all harm. He will watch over your life. The Lord will watch over your coming and your going, both now and forevermore. Now, at this point, I want to state what I think maybe we all would acknowledge is obvious. This language is not literal. My foot has slipped many times. My wife is currently very concerned about some marks on my back from sunburn. Anybody else got a sunburn yet this year? The sun does hurt us sometimes by day, right? There are things in life that make you feel like God's asleep sometimes. There's difficult things, there's painful things, but I promise you, even in the most difficult and painful of times, God has watched over you. And he has gotten you to the place that you're at today. You see, there's this myth that says, if I follow Jesus, nothing bad's going to happen to me. I'm going to be healthy. I'm going to be wealthy. There's not going to be any difficulty in my life. And people, when they believe that, they either just they just deny the bad things in their life, or they just stop following Jesus because it's just not true. But here's why we really believe this. We really believe this because you grow in character through trials. God wants what's best for you. And always having only good things happen to you is not what's best for you. As much as God doesn't want you to be in pain, he knows that pain produces perseverance. And one of the most painful things about following Jesus is that his safety, the safety that he offers is not a physical safety. It's not even a relational safety. It is a spiritual safety. And it's the most important kind of safety that you could ever want because your soul is safe in him. The only part of you that is eternal is safe in him. And that's how we can rest. There is a safety. Listen, this is the point of today. There is a safety in trusting Jesus that sustains you through the dangerous journey of life. This is it. There is a safety in trusting Jesus that sustains you through the dangerous journey of life. Doesn't always feel safe, though. Has anyone else ever driven through the sandy trails of Anza Borrego at 90 miles an hour? I have. And I hated it, man. I didn't drive, actually. I was in the passenger seat. My friend Gus Bowler pretty much made me pee my pants. It was terrifying because there's these big rock formations and you're driving on loose sand in the middle and there's rocks everywhere and he's just gunning it back and forth. It was terrifying. I mean, I don't know how long it went on, maybe half an hour of this, and I was like, why am I here? People love this, but I am not one of them. But can I tell you that at the end of that 30-minute drive, there wasn't a scratch on me. And there also wasn't a scratch on the vehicle. I did not feel safe. But I was safe. I didn't feel safe, but I was safe. You won't always feel safe, but I promise you your soul is safe in Jesus. I'm not sure if I'll ever trust Gus to drive me in the desert again, but I know my kids will. They loved it. Maybe they didn't quite understand the danger that I knew we were in, but they fully trusted in Gus's driving. And they felt reckless, and it felt out of control, but we were all safe because there was someone driving who proved to be trustworthy. Are you getting it? There's someone driving who proves to be trustworthy. Even when the journey feels insane, even when it feels like chaotic and unsafe, there is a safety in Jesus that sustains you through the dangerous journey of life. So I don't know what you're facing. There's people in here who are facing physical danger. If that's you, I'm sorry. I don't ever want to minimize how unsafe your situation may be physically, emotionally, relationally. There may be a broken relationship that just makes you feel like you can't be at peace. Maybe with friends or family. It might even be your marriage. Maybe you're facing uncertainty financially. That's a hard one that makes you feel like you can't, find rest. Maybe your health is failing. If it's not now, it will. It's going to happen to every one of us. So what will you do during the dangerous journey? I hope you'll follow what the psalmist told us to do. Keep looking up. And here's why we keep looking up. I don't want to diminish your pain. I don't want to diminish the danger you feel, the unsafety you feel. But here's what I know is true. The danger of the journey pales in comparison to the God who is with you. That could set you free if you believe it. The danger of the journey pales in comparison to the God who is with you. So when the journey feels dangerous, follow the guidance of this psalm of ascent. Go back to what ancient Israel would do. They keep looking up, right? Because it's an uphill climb. You got to go up. Looking up is required. You got to take your focus off your circumstances. You can't focus on your problems all the time. You have to look up. And when you keep looking up, remember where your help comes from. It's not from you. It's not from me. I am not the source of my provision. And so you do this, right? You keep looking up. You remember where your help comes from. You remember who he is, what he's done, from creation to new creation. And you remember what he will do, and he's not going to let your foot slip. I want you to just think about, if you listen to this, if you follow this, take a peek into what your future could look like. If you keep looking up. If you say, my help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. He will not let your foot slip. You're trusting in what he's doing. You're grounded. You're not stuck, but you're grounded in him. You're moving forward in life. You're focused on things that matter. Eternity, relationships, love, Jesus. These are the things that we need to focus our lives on. They're not in front of us. It's hard to see them. But this is the difficult thing about living an unhurried life. You have to focus on the things that aren't in front of you and think beyond your current circumstances. This summer, I will be changing pickleball partners at my family camp. It's a big deal for me because 2 years ago, me and my partner won the championship. We were very proud of that. And last year, we made it to the championship, and I'm going to be honest with you, I was not proud of how I behaved in that championship match. If you don't know me, I have a nasty competitive side, and I was not kind to the opponents who beat us, but they didn't do it fairly. But I'm trying to let go of that. And so I'm asking Amy, my wife, to be my pickleball partner this summer. She's shaking her head no. Maybe I'll just have to sit out. She's not super competitive, and that's probably for the best. Because I realized something after last year's championship game. There's life after pickleball. Right? The way I behave in that match is not the most important thing. That match is not the most important thing. I had to look beyond the match to the relationships and like my own integrity and love and kindness, these things that I actually value way more than winning the family camp pickleball trophy. Does that make sense? This is what we have to pick our eyes up from our current circumstances and look beyond what we can see, which it sounds so vague, but the things are eternal. And this is how we live an unhurried life. This is the end of our series, The Unhurried Life. It's been one of my favorites because I need it really bad. I have not figured out how to live an unhurried life yet, but I'd like to try. And so I hope you'll try with me.